Hello, this is Chrystal Meach with Dao of the Heart, and I have Debbi-Jo Horton back again. Thank you so much for coming back with me
Thank
today.
you so much for asking me to come back.
I
It's always great to
know,
spend time with you.
I know, you too. And last time we had such a, I don't know, emotional. When I heard your story, I just was crying. I was looking at the footage. Yeah, I mean, you had such a touching story, and yeah, I'd love to learn more. I'd love to learn more about your podcast.
My podcast, the one thing I thought I would never do. So, lesson number one, never say never. But years ago, were constantly being told, oh, you need to do a podcast about that. Oh, you need to do a podcast about that. And I'm like, I don't need one more thing on my plate. No, I don't. And, it's funny that oftentimes we don't always think that we have something of value to offer. I always just thought, well, doesn't everybody know that? How does not everybody know? Like, this is crazy. And I ended up doing a one-to-one meeting with a woman who was a podcast VA. And actually, she's way more than just a virtual assistant. She actually produces my podcast now because she kept saying, you really need to do a podcast. You have so much value. And I
Yeah.
was like, I can't do it. And she was like, but you're kind of already doing it right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? I am not doing a podcast. And she said, yes, you are. I had met her in a networking group, and I have a private Facebook group called Advantages to Aging, and she was a member. She said, you have Tuesday Tips, where you interview people about a variety of different things. The audio of those tips can be easily turned into a podcast. And I went, what do you mean? And she was like, so you could be getting like the video content out of it, but also the audio content out of it. And she started to try to explain to me how to produce a podcast. And I said, no, you don't understand. I have way more on my plate than I even want to be dealing with. What if you give me a proposal for producing my podcast? And I'll look at it and see whether or not it fits in my marketing budget. And it did. So almost 3 years ago, it'll be 3 years on April 26th, I launched my podcast. It very quickly became a top 10, I think, in the world of podcasts.
Whoa.
And it was amazing because I honestly thought that my audience were those 50s, 60s, and 70-year-old women, because we were talking about the advantages to aging. And it has been consistently 98% women. 52% of them are between the ages of 35 and 45. And I think 40 or 42% are between the ages of 25 and 35. Totally blew my mind. But when I started to think about it, I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because in my mind, I was thinking that they are setting up the accounts for their mother, their aunt, whatever. And then I started meeting my listeners. They are between 25 and 45. So they're not setting it up for someone older to listen to it because that older person doesn't know how to do it themselves. They're listening to it themselves because the content that I'm delivering are all those things that, you should be thinking about all the time, not just waiting until, as many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s say, oh, it's too late. No, it's not too late. But 25 to 45-year-olds know that you need to start now. And so that has been really amazing.
Wow. I can't believe. I mean, I think about like my own demographics since I just started. I'm not 3 years in like you. But for me, it's I set it up for women, and I can't believe how many men. So it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
Men have
You
been
just,
watching.
you have to just deliver the message, and the people that need to hear it will show up.
Yeah. And you don't always, that's not necessarily what you think it's going to be.
No, I was totally impressed. Yeah.
So fascinating. And so 3 years, how many, do you even know like how many people you've interviewed? Hello?
Oh, you're freezing. So I didn't hear your question. Sorry.
How many people have you interviewed? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can kind of guess because my podcast drops every other Monday. So we are 2 months away from 3 years. So that's like, I don't know, what, 34 months?
Wow.
So divide that by at least by two, because I've done a couple that has just been me. So 64, probably 64, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, some of them have been repeats. Dr. Green was amazing. We talked about perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, and whether or not utilizing hormone replacement therapy made sense, and what are the questions you should be asking. I've had another guest back several times who talked about caregiving and caregiving specifically for someone with memory issues, whether it's Alzheimer's or dementia. And then, once that person is gone, like you have to reclaim your life because you've given so much of your life to caregiving. And I suppose that, really should resonate with anyone that has been a caregiver who has no longer needs to be a caregiver, and then realizing that all of that you gave to that other person, you need to be giving to yourself. And that's probably a great lesson for all of us to learn, whether we're a caregiver or not, is that all of the time where you think that, I should be helping this person, like start with you first, because as that saying goes, you cannot pour from an empty vessel. So you always have to be refilling that vessel.
Yeah, that was a major realization for me in my career at corporate. Like I put everything into it, and I lost, I mean, my relationship, my divorce, it all came crumbling down.
Mm,
And I really had to look at my own mindset because I was so in that job. I wasn't even sleeping. Like
yeah,
so
that's not a
I'm giving,
relationship.
yeah. And how many times I think back to that job was like competing with my relationship. But I kept thinking, how would we survive if I didn't have this? And 6 years later, I can tell you that construct has come down. Like
Yeah, I was gonna
there
say
are
a
ways.
different type of not surviving. The
Yeah.
relationship didn't survive. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
always a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yes. And that's something too you learn kind of in entrepreneurship is that you're you're constantly finding different ways to do things, right? I
Right.
mean, you're stretching your mind in order to figure out, hey, how do I do this? There
Hmm.
is another way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the things that has come out of doing this podcast is that I've learned so much. But I've also learned that I have so much to give. And this is a great platform to be able to give that to. So, not just to give it to the people that I work with in terms of whether or not it's in my neuro business, helping them with their, the way they look and feel and live their life, having a better lifestyle. But I also, like, really new, decided to reopen my tax and bookkeeping business. So, helping to make them better understand their finances instead of just like helping them to comply with whatever requirements on a loan, or the federal government says you have to file a tax return, but what does it really mean for you? And I think that probably really hit home for me several probably decades, not just years ago, when people get really upset that they're paying more in taxes, but we've taken all of the deductions and whatnot, and having to sit them down and say, Chrystal, paying more taxes is actually a good thing. It means you're making more money. So let's just get you at the top of that tax bracket so it's not feeling that pinch when you first enter that new tax bracket. So, really helping you to understand that paying more taxes is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, unless, of course, the tax rate has gone up, but more often than not, it means that you're in a better place because you're making more money and maybe you're not utilizing that money the way that you should be. And so we need to kind of take a look at that. Because a lot of times, right, we get that raise and it's like, we're going to put the swimming pool in. I'm going to buy a horse. I'm going to take the kids and do this. I'm going to go on this trip. Instead of thinking about, like, okay, this is not like a bonus. This is something I need to really think about. And I need to be thinking about, my future, the future of my family, and utilizing this, some of it, yes, to do some of those fun things, but also to help make sure that we're having a better, stable financial future. So having that better relationship with money too. So
Mhm.
it's a great way of
Yeah,
being able to share that.
you're kind of like going down another rabbit hole of the
Oh,
mindset of money.
yes.
And it affects everyone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and
On the positive side and also on the negative side.
yeah, and it's interesting too, like what we call money. I mean, what is your definition of money?
Excellent question, especially now since we're getting further and further away from dealing with cash and even checks. Like everybody is just paying through like PayPal or Venmo or doing trades where, I might trade my products and services for yours. And a lot of times people, again, don't think of that as income or an equal expense. And it is. Like a lot of times people will say, they'll look at their instead of looking at their financials the way they should be, they're looking at their bank account, right? And so like they're looking at deposits of cash, or cash equivalent, and thinking, I have spent so many hours, that's all I made, not thinking that, well, you're also doing a trade with, say, a massage therapist who charges $100 an hour, and you go every week for an hour. Well, that's $5,200 more income that you earned. And it's a medical expense, perhaps, unless you're just going because you love it. But if you have any way that you can attach that to a doctor's recommendation that you should be going for a weekly massage, you still have to claim that as income. You may or may not be able to, have that equal expense, but it's really the value of what it is that you're trading that shows up either as income or as an expense. So a lot of people don't even think about that either. So yes, you are, potentially working a lot more hours than what your bank balance might show, but oftentimes it's because you're doing things for other people. Like I know someone who um, actually does the book for a garage where they, repair cars and they do oil changes and stuff like that, tires and whatnot. And she gets paid very little on a monthly basis in cash, but she has 3 vehicles in her family and they all get serviced for free. But it's really not for free because it's being serviced for her time and her expertise. So you have to kind of shift your mindset on that.
Yeah, this is a fascinating conversation because and it's so needed too, because where you hit the trigger for me is value.
Mm.
So, value of time versus money. And when we think of money, we might think of cash or credit from the bank, whatever we put in there, cash equivalent, I guess you were saying. Um, and money is not cash. You going to challenge me on that? Can you hear me?
You're freezing.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, hello, hello. I'm back.
Good. I was just about to say, well, while we wait for Chrystal to come back, let's
Right?
talk about value and how you want to be valuing yourself. That's another, I mean, there's a lot of ways of thinking about value. So I didn't catch what you meant by value, but I also deal with a lot of new small business owners who maybe left corporate. Let's just stick with the bookkeeping. They left corporate as a bookkeeper and they were making $20 an hour. And they say, well, I'm going to start my own bookkeeping company and I'm going to charge $25 an hour and give myself a $5 an hour raise. It doesn't really work that way. And you're devaluing yourself. So you want to make sure that you are looking at, like, what is my potential earnings, not as an employee, but what are bookkeepers charging, and not, because you're not giving yourself a $5 raise because now you're paying all your own taxes. You have to supply your own health insurance. You have expenses that now go along with that bookkeeping service that you are providing. So value is definitely an important thing, and making sure that you're valuing yourself, you're valuing your skills, and you're not just devaluing those abilities because you're just thinking that you're giving yourself a raise. Because a good bookkeeper, one, as a job, a good bookkeeper should be making $35 to $40 an hour, corporate. And if you're doing it on your own, and I'm talking about a bookkeeper, not a data entry person, you should be getting $75 to $100 an hour. So hopefully that's helpful. You can equate that to whatever field it is that you're working in, and get out of that. If you're going to open your own business, take on that ownership, that owner's mindset rather than an employee mindset, because so much more rides on you as an owner than as an employee. And I'm sure Chrystal will come back at any moment now. She seems to be having some difficulties with her computer, but we will give it one more moment. And if not, wrap it up. I love her podcast. By the way, if this is the first time that you've been listening, make sure you go find some other episodes, because she has some really amazing guests that contribute to her podcast with a whole bunch of different things that they share. And you, Chrystal, I'm sure you found this podcast. You can find all her other episodes and listen on in and learn more about all different things. Like, I just met one of her other guests, and he was quite amazing. So,
Oh, thanks.
glad you were back. I was like, I'll just keep on talking.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the
Host that I am.
commercial. Yeah, I was recording yesterday and there was an issue kind of like this where it was back and forth, and they said it's because once California goes on the internet, then it starts to break up, even though we're, I'm in Wisconsin, you're in is it Boston?
Rhode Island, yeah, close.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like I knew it was the East Coast, but yeah, they said it's as soon as California goes on, it seems like all around the U.S. there's issues with internet. So I don't know.
Well, we talked all about valuing yourself, so you'll have
Yeah.
to listen to your own podcast to hear about it.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna just like stop for now, and then yeah, I'll invite you on again as a guest, and hopefully we'll try it at a different time so that maybe we don't have these issues. Just see if it helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on my show and for my commercial. Check out Tao of the Heart and Debbi-Jo Horton. Her information will be in the description box below. And have a great day.